ChatGPT, all these AI modules were starting to ramp up. And I felt that it was something we really needed to incorporate in SEO, blog writing, and just having these modules be able to function for the clients. Typically, if you want to make it into that section, we found the most success by really drilling down on those people always ask questions that pop up and then building out blogs and supporting backlinks and elements within the site to push up those rankings.
Well, thanks for joining another episode of the Clicks to Customers podcast. This is John Horn here, your host and CEO of Stud Group. And today I am joined by Kaleb Steele, the founder of Steele Solutions. Kaleb, thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me, John. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So what Kaleb and his company does is really focuses on the SEO space, which is how I got to know him, working with some mutual clients in that space. And so I'm excited to have him on today to just talk about all things SEO and some very, very specific questions and topics I've been wanting to pick his brain about. So before we jump into some of those specific questions, Caleb, I'd love to just give you a chance to give us a little bit background. How did you get into the SEO world and get into creating your own company?
Yeah, so out of college, I was with multiple different marketing companies through COVID and that fun time. Um, and then I began working for an ad agency probably around 2022. And I was with them for just under a year. And that's kind of when ChatGPT, all these AI modules were starting to ramp up. And I felt that it was something we really needed to incorporate in SEO, blog writing, and just having these modules be able to function for the clients. The boss I had at the time kind of saw it as a threat and something that was going to go away pretty quick, and I did not. So I decided to quit, double down with the knowledge I learned there, and launch my own agency.
Awesome. I'm glad you brought up AI because I think we're going to talk about that a lot during the conversation today, which actually is a perfect segue. So I'd love to talk about AI overviews, which for those watching and listening, this when you Google things on Google these days, often what you see come up at the very top is an AI overview from Google, where they are essentially trying to answer your question directly on the SERP, on the search engine results page, before you even click somewhere. And of course, they are also getting that information from somewhere, and they are sourcing that information there. And so I'd love, Caleb, to hear from you. Kind of how has that changed, if it has changed, how you think about SEO, and what are things that you do to try and make sure that the clients you're working with are the clients that are being sourced by those overviews?
Yeah, great question. When it first came around, it was definitely scary because it was so sudden and there's no warning, as with most everything that Google does. Um, but we were able to navigate through it by trial and error. We really kind of, at first, we wanted to analyze what content was ranking, what wasn't, and we came to find out that it's only blogs that really show up in that suggestion category. So the way we tackled it is the people always ask section of Google, invaluable resource. Typically, if you want to make it into that section, we found the most success by really drilling down on those people always ask questions that pop up and then building out blogs and supporting backlinks and elements within the site to push up those rankings. And then we're beginning now to pop up in those results as a result of that. But at first we were kind of banking on, it's just going to be core content from within the site that's going to show up there. But Google's really pushed towards blogs, and that being the supporting content that they run those AI suggestions off of. So being really heavy on the blog content, but making sure it's really useful in terms of the people always ask section was the way we cracked that.
Very interesting. So blog content, something that Google's really focusing on pulling there. And you mentioned backlink, things like that. Do you find that the same types of strategies you might use historically to try and get a post to rank as a quote unquote blue link, is that the same type of stuff that you would do to try and get that post to be sourced by the AI overview, or are there some different things that you would focus on?
Yes and no. I found in the last 6 months specifically, Google's not taking as much stock in backlinks and the number of backlinks as much as the quality of links. So we really focus on the site structure, the entire site, and having inner pages interlinked into that page, as well as we'll build the blog and then we'll have a supporting list of blogs pointing back up to it, kind of a inverse funnel type deal. And that typically seems to do a lot better than just flooding with backlinks, because a lot of the links you get nowadays are toxic, and that's really going to hurt the
Mm,
ranking. So that's a
yeah.
relief because it saves a lot of time, and that's one of the big human elements of what we do outside of the AI, nurturing the AI, but more so content mapping and making sure the structure of the site's flawless seems to be the biggest factor there.
Interesting. So would you say that you spend maybe less time now than previously in going after backlinks and finding, finding backlinks to place?
Yeah, significantly less time. More so it'll be partnerships. Press
Mm.
releases used to not have as much credit as they do now.
Hmm.
It seems that they're on a comeback as long as they're from reputable sources. So we'll focus on PR releases. And then, of course, a few backlinks are always helpful, but by no means is it this package gives you X number of backlinks for the way we do SEO nowadays, because it's not really
Mhm.
needed.
That makes sense. So quality over quantity, looking
Yeah.
for partnerships, PR stuff like that. Very interesting. Cool, cool. Um, Going back to the AI side of things for a little bit, I know you use AI a lot internally to help you with the work that you do for your clients and content generation stuff like that. I'd love to learn more about what are your processes, how do you leverage that, and delve into that if you would.
Yeah, so when we first got into all this, the idea behind it, and ChatGPT was very, very new at that time. I think it was on Model 1, maybe 1.5 or whatever they called it then. Um, but the idea behind it was to replace that internal marketing employee with an AI module. So each customer has their own module that is set up over the course of a month. And what we do with that is we analyze the past content as well as the rest of the site. And then we sit down with the owner or a marketing employee within maybe customer service within the company and really take a month and nurture that module and make sure it understands the ins and outs. We talk about different stories and challenges the company may have faced. And it's a lot of input for that first month. And that not only humanizes the AI as we use it for blogging, but it gives it that special tone rather than being so
Mhm.
robotic in the blog and in the content. And it seems to rank better.
That's really cool. So you're almost building an AI employee for the client. You're training it, teaching it with knowledge, and then once it has that and has that tone, obviously it can generate as much content as you want to generate and just prompt it in the right direction. That's really cool.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
the
that.
idea. And then what it can also, so it can create blog content, of course, but once it's really established, we can get into things like creating email copy,
Mm,
as well as just helping with overall site structure, because it really understands what the company is after and what its core goals are.
hmm.
So keeping it updated on the happenings and things like that, it might sound silly, but really it does make quite the difference. Because then you can pin ideas off of it as well. So,
Hmm.
and each module is separate from everything else. We'll hook it up with APIs to automate things and whatnot. But having that and nurturing it has been really, really um, special for us, and kind of what sets it apart from just diving into a module and having it write a blog.
That makes sense. As part of that, are you telling it to actually like go and read all the content on the website, that type of thing?
Yeah, so we'll analyze the sitemap, and then that'll be a file that changes over time,
Mm,
given what
got it.
platform you use. Um, and then so each week it'll have a refresher. We'll go through that. We'll go over blog topics, email blasts, things of that nature.
Hmm.
So it's evolving definitely, because you don't want it to run astray. You gotta kind of nurture it like it's a small child, but in reality, it's very intelligent.
Wait, you're telling me that AI can can run astray and make things up. I've never seen that. No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, keep the guardrails in place and keep training it. Oh, cool. Um, I'm curious. So, kind of taking a step back, a little bit higher level, looking at the SEO world. A question I like to ask often of any experts that I'm able to speak with in different fields would be: are there any myths or beliefs about SEO that you would like to break? That you, whether it could be, hey, like you mentioned earlier, you don't really need a high quantity of backlinks or whatever it may be. Kind of what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I come across in terms of pricing and the way that companies package their SEO deals is it appears to me there's not much difference between running a national campaign or a local campaign. If
Hmm.
you're doing it correctly and going after the keywords aggressively with a good strategy. It used to be okay, if you're going to run local SEO, it's easy peasy. Um, but there's not much of a difference between running it locally and nationally as long as you have the sites to support that. And so a lot of clients will fall into, oh, to be a national e-commerce brand or a national shipping company, I'm really going to have to throw tens of thousands of dollars at the SEO. And that really isn't the case anymore. It used to be,
Hmm.
but in the last couple of years, it seems the playing fields are level there.
Very interesting. So leveled in a good way for the website owner, I guess,
Uh-huh.
if they get with the right agency, if they get with an agency or an expert that has that same perspective. Oh, that is a good myth to break. What would you say maybe are some things that are still true of SEO that have been true for a long time? Kind of the foundational pillars of, if you're going to be in the search engine optimization world, these are still things that you should be doing or should be, ways that you should be approaching it.
Yeah, so site speed, always a must. Making sure you're looking at page speed insights and having all those errors corrected within Google Search Console. I mean, Search Console is the roadmap to anything. Um, Really, in the last couple of years, to accessibility and making sure everything has the proper meta tags and is accessible by anyone. Google really weighs into that a lot more than they used to. Um, and then just having content that actually matters. Like anybody can write the blog over XYZ and then format the proper H1, H2 tags, but putting a unique spin on it and a perspective that's factual, but also informative. Like that's the most important thing there because there's so much copy pasta across these blogs,
Yeah.
and then yours doesn't stand out as much. So making sure you have that human element and not just the elements of, okay, my keywords are in all the tags in the right place, checking all the boxes. I think as AI is developing on Google's end as well, they're able to really look into that and see those little nuances. Uh, so focusing on that content, being personable and unique is great.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to emphasize. And two, I think it segues very well with how you're approaching leveraging AI to create content for your clients, because you're not just, opening up ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, write me an article." You're saying you are training it with information, nuance, with data that's coming from the client and so forth. And so that's going to be able to create an output that is more nuanced and more actually valuable to the reader than just, Joe Blow saying, "Write me an article." To ChatGPT. So I think that's a really important point to highlight.
Yeah, exactly. And over the long run, it ends up saving you time as well because the module isn't just spitting out new content each time. It's able to reference back into past
Mm,
articles that it's written and make those connections. And then that's when the interlinks and the structure come into play as well.
that's a really good point. So that makes a lot of sense. And I'd love to circle back to the local side of things that you mentioned there a little bit, comparing local to national. I'm curious, really two questions that come to mind. First would be with Google business profiles. Is that something that you spend much time on, and how do you kind of factor that into a website's SEO ranking?
Yeah, I mean, for your hometown and if you're a local business, it's great to have because it's right there, especially on mobile device or if you're using Google Maps. Um, it's it's wonderful because you're popping up right away. So on a local level, yeah, it matters. But whenever we get national, Google does a great job at figuring out, do you have a physical office, or is that address just a PO box or something you're sharing?
Mm.
So a lot of these companies that are serving nationally, be it ecom or um, we have a lot of lawyers that can do remote work and things like that. They don't have those physical addresses and those Google business profiles supporting it. And so for that, to bypass it, we build lots of landing pages for sub locations. And then we'll really, really drill down on that sub location landing page, state, city, and the URL, main
Mm.
topic of the page and the URL. That's the typical structure for those pages that we've had the most success.
And on that local side of things, kind of segueing back to the backlinks conversation as well, for directories and kind of local citation sources, how important would you say it is to get in a bunch of directories, to use something like a Moz local or something to get in a bunch of places, or is that an outdated thing at this point?
I wouldn't hesitate to say it's outdated. It's kind of spending money that you don't need to spend per
Mm.
se. If you have a lot of social links from people that have used your business in the community, that has a lot more weight than getting into those directories. Um, Especially companies like Yelp aren't nearly as important as they used to be. People actually really are fighting against Yelp with fake reviews from competitors and things like that. That's what we deal with a lot. So it feels like those directories don't carry as much weight. I always recommend businesses have the BBB badge and things like that, of course, if they can. Um, but social links, I say, go a lot farther on the local level than they used to.
Awesome. Well, folks, you heard it here first. Probably not, but I heard it here first. So good stuff. Caleb, well, I appreciate your time today. Really enjoyed digging into some of these technical questions, and also just hearing more about how you approach the fulfillment, kind of these AI models that you train, which is I think really cool and a really great idea. So as we wrap up here, where is the best place for people to find you?
Steele Solutions AI. You can submit a contact form there. You can also add me on LinkedIn. We really like to work with all types of businesses, regardless of budget, things like that. We have the ability to be adaptable in that sense. But yeah, give us a call if you need help with SEO and paid ads. John's your guy. So we don't touch that front.
Awesome. Well, Caleb, thanks so much. Steele Solutions of AI, that's the website. We'll put that in the show notes and description as well. And until next time, thank you for watching and listening to the podcast. Let's go out and make some more money online, as they say. Until next time, take care.